But all I want is a little pad in Hawaii. Honolulu, Waikiki. Yeah, you can come along with me. Nothing for sale in all of Hawaii. I don't believe you. I'm going back. Trying to get a little pad, but I can't find one. For those of you who don't know, Little Pad is a song on Smiley Smile, the Beach Boys' 1967 lo-fi album. And like many Beach Boys songs, it is about Hawaii. Now, Little Pad, of course, is very general and doesn't mention any specific places or events or cities or anything like that. But other Beach Boys songs do. So having just returned from the islands and having made sure to see as many Beach Boys related sites as possible, I thought what better way to kind of usher in a new Beach Boys summer than by talking about their Hawaiian locations. So we'll start, of course, with the obvious Hawaiian Beach Boys song, the song known as Hawaii, released in 1963 as a track on the Surfer Girl LP. Hawaii is a big fan favorite, never issued as a single in the United States, although it was issued as a single in other places such as Australia and did relatively well. Hawaii is probably best known as a live staple. It can be heard on the group's first concert album from 1964 and also on the most recent concert album from 2013. So definitely a song that has covered many generations, and I believe Mike and Bruce, as the Beach Boys, still do it in their live sets today. I'm not going to see them for several weeks yet, but I'll let you know if it's in the set there. So very interesting. Hawaii, of course, going a song about traveling to the islands and participating in the big surf competitions and whatnot. But it does mention two very important locations, Honolulu and Waikiki. So I got to see both of those. Honolulu, very nice city, very busy, very touristy, but also very clean. Worth seeing. There's a lot to do there, even for boring tourists like me. Still a lot to do, and a very nice place. Waikiki is perhaps even more significant to the Beach Boys, as for their 25th anniversary, they did a very special show there with many guest stars, the Everly Brothers, and Glenn Campbell, and so on. The big Waikiki Beach concert. It was only released on home media in parts of Europe, but you can find the whole thing on YouTube. Probably most remembered today for being a weird one-off performance of Brian Wilson's The Spirit of Rock and Roll. We wouldn't see that song released until the mid-2000s on the Songs from Here and Back collection, which I have somewhere here. But Waikiki, you know, a lot of surf stuff going on. Not a lot of people surfing when I was there because the weather and water conditions have to be just right. But very nice beach. Very busy though, you know, if you don't want a crowd or you don't trust other people looking at you in your bathing suit, I get it. You might not want to go there, but the Beach Boys mentioned both those locations, and other songs talk about Waikiki as well, such as Ricky Nelson's Travelin' Man, that kind of thing. So it's a very popular spot, very important spot in Beach Boys, you know, culture, or music culture in general. Let's take a moment, I'll show you some photos of Honolulu and Waikiki. Do you want to come along with me? The original 1964 Beach Boys concert LP was a huge hit, going all the way to #1 on the charts, the first live album to ever do so. Naturally, as we know from looking at Beach Boys' greatest hits packages, when there's one very successful property, there has to be a follow-up. And there were several attempts to create a Beach Boys in concert Part 2, notably Chicago 1965. Those recordings have since been released digitally, but nothing came to fruition. In August of 1967, the Beach Boys played 2 shows at the Honolulu International Center in Hawaii, and those performances were deemed so poor that they were not officially released until 2017. Some of them on the Sunshine Tomorrow CD pack, and the remainder being released on a digital download set, along with other live performances titled Live Sunshine. So that's download only. It has a few of the same tracks. Some of them get remixed or re-edited or whatever. These concerts are very interesting. The group does an extremely diverse set list, the closest we ever get to an official Smiley Smile tour. So we see Heroes and Villains in a very early live performance, and Gettin' Hungry, which I believe was only done live at these concerts. And they even rehearse Whistlin' under the alternate title All Day and All Night. There's some other rarities too. Surfin', despite being the group's first song, is very rarely done live. When it is, it's usually done as like an intro for the group or part of a medley perhaps of surf songs. So to hear it done in its entirety is really cool, and even has a little organ riff that goes do 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 do, which would become Do It Again the next year. Very interesting. There's a special track, a kind of a brief surf instrumental called Hawthorne Boulevard, which I believe remains exclusive to these concerts. I don't even think it was done in studio. And it's also interesting because it's really the only time between late 1965 and 1970 that Brian Wilson played with the group. Bruce Johnston elected not to go to Hawaii and play. Brian Wilson went instead, brought his organ with him. Reception to the concerts, very tepid. A lot of people said they thought the Beach Boys singing and playing was very poor. I gotta admit, there are a lot of articles and whatnot that claim the group was very, shall we say, high on assorted drugs. I can believe that. They're definitely a little loopy. The audience is pretty wound up too, but there are some really wholesome moments, like girls in the audience asking Brian Wilson, "Brian, how's your dog?" Pretty funny stuff. And admittedly, Mike Love is not too keen on performing Surfin'. He's a little sarcastic, calling it like a pimple from the past and things like that. That foreshadows when we get to the 1968 download set about how much they hated playing their early songs at this point. So some interesting stuff there. It is a fascinating concert just because it's so different. They're slowing down a lot of the songs and playing them differently, trying things like The Letter, the box tops The Letter, which they didn't usually do. So it's got kind of a unique feel to it, even though it's maybe a little too strange for mainstream fans. I can kind of see why it wasn't used and why they kind of kept it in the can. I believe the only track from the actual live performances that was officially released between the recording in late 1967 and this from 2017, one take of Heroes and Villains was used as a bonus track on the concert Live in London CD. Today the Hawaii shows, usually called Laid in Hawaii, L-E-I''D, Laid in Hawaii, are more known for the Beach Boys' attempt to salvage the sessions and do them live in studio. That was released in its entirety. Those tracks have a life outside of the original recording and outside of this release. When we talk about albums like Beach Boys Rarities, Hawthorne, California, Made in California, excuse me, we'll get into those a little bit more. But for now, we want to focus on the actual live performances. And of course, there was not one but two digital supplements for the era. None of the live performances from the concerts are on studio sessions here. They are all on this one, as are the rehearsals. But what used to be the Honolulu International Center is now the Neal Blaisdell Center, still a concert venue. I believe the Beach Boys played in the Arena building, which is kind of the round one that I'm going to show you now. To finish off the bulk of our discussion of Honolulu and Waikiki, there is indeed a Hard Rock Café in Honolulu, and they have a very nice Beach Boys exhibit. A signed drumhead from a concert in Waikiki with many autographs on it, a guitar, and one of the trademark striped shirts. I took pictures of the information plaques as well, so you can pause the video and read those if you want to see more about, the background of the artifacts on display. Additionally, there's a picture of the group. I believe it's from the same photo session as this image from Keep an Eye on Summer. The group is in matching suits. Unfortunately, the lighting conditions just weren't really conducive to a good photo of that, but I managed to get everything else as well. The plaque in the Hard Rock Cafe talks about the song Hawaii as well. So very interesting there. Again, pause the video if you want to look at the artifacts more closely. I sat at the bar underneath the artifacts. I thought was very cool to sit near so much, great Beach Boys merch, or not merch, I guess, artifacts. But I have to say I was a little off-put by the service. The bartender man sneezed and didn't wipe his nose, and that was pretty gross. And there was a moldy strawberry in the little box of strawberries on the bar. And when I pointed it out to the bartender, he replied it was easier to pick the good ones out of the box instead of take the moldy ones out. So needless to say, I was glad I had the flatbread pizza and not something with strawberries in it. Because I don't like flying, and I don't like checking my bags, I made it a goal not to buy too much stuff in Hawaii. But when I was at a used bookstore in Honolulu, I had to pick up this strange rebound book, which just so happens to be the Beach Boys Biography in Words and Pictures. This is from about 1976. Published on the cusp of the release of their big comeback album for the 70s, 15 Big Ones. Indeed, this book actually calls this album Transcendental Meditation, and the songs that it lists are mostly incorrect with the exception of the Beach Boys cover of Blueberry Hill. It also lists songs like Secret Love and Come to the Sunshine as being on there, but of course we know that they're not. It's a very interesting book, and again, Rebound has some great photos. I'll show you, here's a cool one of Bruce with the group in the mid-1970s. And there's also a cool one I wanted to show you. A good photo of Brian and Mike together. It's a very, very interesting read. It's kind of cool to see historical views on the Beach Boys. There are some very controversial takes in here, though. For example, so a lot of songs get scathing reviews, notably All This Is That, which is called a lame, Feel Flows knockoff wannabe, that kind of thing. And also, Carl Wilson is trashed a few times, notably his vocals on The Traitor, the song from the Holland album, with the author claiming Carl was never a standout solo singer. So you wouldn't dare say that today unless you're ready to run for your life. So an interesting read, a lot of typos too. Wonderful is called Winderful a few times, but I bought it, mostly for the historical purposes, and I had a good time reading it. It was kind of fun. It was a little bit big, but I managed to wedge it in my suitcase, so we were good to go. "1963's Hawaii was not the first Beach Boys song to mention a Hawaiian location. The images I just showed you were of Waimea Bay, pointed out as one of the surfing spots on the song, and of course album, that we all know and love, Surfin' USA. So, very interesting. Again, not a lot of surf activity going on, but Waimea Bay is a beautiful spot, and I have to say, the big drawback there is there's really nowhere to park. But it was neat to stop off at least and get some pictures, even if I didn't get in the water. Just for the record, I've never surfed. I don't think I could surf. I swim, and I tried to snorkel, but that didn't go so well. But it was still cool to see all these great locations, and hopefully the surfers who were out on Waimea Bay and elsewhere were indeed enjoying themselves. I wasn't sure, when we get to the Beach Boys song Kona Coast here in a moment, if the Waimea mentioned in that song would be the bay or perhaps the town. So here's an aerial shot of Waimea town as I flew over it. It is not on Oahu, but rather on the Big Island. It was pretty cool though, beautiful town to drive through, and also a beautiful place to fly over. In 1978, the Beach Boys released one of their last true blue surf rock songs, Kona Coast, on the MIU album. You could argue songs like California Callin' that came later are also surf rockers, but Kona Coast, the first song to be specifically about surfing in 10 years for the group, is, I think, really the swan song to that particular genre or whatnot. But it wasn't always just a surf song. It actually began as a Christmas song for the aborted 1977 Merry Christmas from the Beach Boys album. Most Christmas compilations feature it, usually under the title Mele Kaleki Maka, but I always call it by its alternate title, Kona Christmas, to not confuse anyone between the Bing Crosby song and the Beach Boys take. And This is a really upbeat surf rocker too. They basically just rewrote some of the words and stripped off the sleigh bells and some of the Christmas effects and redid it as a good old-fashioned surfing tune. So the Kona coast is on the Big Island. It's a beautiful spot. The Big Island is in the news right now because of all the volcanic activity, which is definitely worth seeing. I got to see it daytime and at night. Very impressive and very different from anything else. And I love the Big Island. It's my favorite Hawaiian island just because it's much cooler and it's much less populated than many of the others. So it's a nice place to get away and truly admire the beauty of Hawaii. But the Kona coast today is very built up and very touristy. A lot of resorts, a lot of private gated resorts and things like that, which, you know, the concept of everywhere having valet parking and whatnot is totally foreign to me. But it's still worth seeing. I got some beautiful photos. But the Kona Coast song never really caught on, which is a shame, because I think it would have worked quite well as a single. And for me, it's the highlight of the MIU album. It should be noted that there are a few, maybe not politically correct aspects of the lyrics, such as the term, "I'll learn to talk like a local, I betcha." That might be somewhat offensive. And the term haole as well, which interestingly is not printed. There's actually a typo on the lyric sleeve here. Steve Lewis of the Beach Boys Basement had a fantastic video going over this lyric handout and pointing out some of the errors and absurdities within. But haole, of course, being a white person, so the lyric Kani and Wahine and the haoles too, men, women, and non-native Hawaiians, all, you know, saying hello and whatnot. I gotta say though, all the native Hawaiians I met were extremely friendly. The Aloha spirit truly does exist. You know, Hawaii is a very nice place to visit. And, you know, usually the rudest people are other tourists from different parts of the world. But, oh well, hey, what can you do, right? But Kona Coast, very underrated song. The spiritual successor to Hawaii as part of the ending kind of coda of the song. Honolulu, Waikiki, do you want to come along with me is thrown in there. Along with Waimea, so either the town or the bay, it's not specified. Up to Honolulu, I didn't get to Honolulu, that's on a different island. Nor did I sadly get to Lahaina, which the Beach Boys call out in a couple songs. This one and also Lahaina, Aloha. That's on Maui. I didn't get to Maui, unfortunately. But here's some pictures of the Kona coast for you. Beautiful spot and very popular amongst vacationers. And now, as our final location, the closer to the 1968 Friends LP, we go back to Oahu to talk about Diamond Head. Diamond Head in the Beach Boys catalog is just a really cool, gentle Hawaiian instrumental. Some people say it's kind of filler and maybe not as, you know, interesting as other songs, you know, that they could have used in its place, something with lyrics. But I think Diamond Head's a good closer. It's just a gentle, mellow way to end a very gentle and mellow album. I believe Dennis also did an instrumental called Mauna Kona, but I couldn't find a place called Mauna Kona. And there are things like Brian Wilson's In Blue Hawaii or the aforementioned Little Pad that don't really fit in this video because they're not actual spots. But I did want to see Diamond Head, and last time I was in Hawaii in 2003, I walked Diamond Head, so I walked it again. Very beautiful, inactive volcano. Has a nice trail you can climb up. If you're a Hawaii resident, you get in for free at any time. If you're not, you have to reserve and pay, but it's very cheap. And it's a good walk. If you like stairs, then you'll be right up, you know, right up your alley. Or if you like kind of steep trails, you have to watch where you step. It's pretty rocky. But once you actually get up to the top, and you can see some of the disused military stuff that's still up there from World War II, if not earlier, it's pretty cool. And you get a good view of Oahu and the surrounding area. And I'll leave you with some shots of Diamond Head. Please tune in next time. We have a VHS video coming up, as well as a review of the Beach Boys 2007 compilation, North of the Sun. Hope you enjoyed this little Betamax Blocker on the road video, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.